Well, good afternoon. This is maybe morning. I am back in business, I guess, making these very simple videos for a while. Basically, I need to get some new gear, uh, but for now, this is okay. And I got a chance to think about a lot of things that are on my mind because I'm pulling together what amounts to, I call this a mandala, but basically, what's on this little chart is kind of my, we could call it a business plan, we could call it a life philosophy. The main issue here is that I think I've found my direction. And one of the big parts of this is something, oops, excuse me, I want to put down right here. Language is a technology. Okay. This is really, really important because where we are in the United States, where we are globally, is we could have America has a technology problem, okay? The responsible use of technology. And this, when you understand that language is a technology, it makes things a little bit easier because you understand that money is language. A lot of the reasons why we're having problems is because, on the one hand, we have the technology of guns, and on the other hand, we have the technology of freedom of speech, but we basically consider corporations people, which is another form of kind of using language improperly, I suppose. And so the issue is, in a really simple fashion, that language is a technology. I'll just leave it at that for now. And with that in mind, I guess what I'm doing with what I'm up to is these little maps that I have here. This is where we live. We live on this planet. And there's a little stain here from coffee, I suppose, and some other things. I got these printouts a while back. I liked them because they were very linear and easy to look at. This is the northern hemisphere, and this is the southern hemisphere. We usually look at things in terms of western and eastern hemispheres, but these two hemispheres are so remarkably different from one another. But what they both involve are the water on Earth. And if you can see what's happening here, the water is swirling around in this little thing and then going through this very narrow channel in the northern hemisphere, while meanwhile it's going around a continent of ice, uh, kind of like the opposite way, the yin and the yang of the situation on the southern hemisphere. And this area of the world here is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world. And this area here is, if this ice melts, we won't be in very good shape. This is another map of our United States right here, but basically this is North America, and this area here, you can see, there we are, right in here. Excuse me. Now, why is this important? Beyond it being interesting, is that it's only human beings have this language technology issue. All of the other creatures, on Earth don't have these issues. We are the ones that have the language technology issue. And I guess, why don't we just put money right down here? Because money is the big deal. We are now in a relationship problem with what could be called information management. Let's just do this really quick. Information management. I've brought this up a couple times, but This issue of advertising. Advertising is like the world's worst education, advertising. And what we have now in what could be called communications, realize that all of this is revolving around language, okay? Communication tech, right? Google, okay? Apple, okay? AT&T, which we don't think about too much anymore, but they're a big part of things, as are IBM. They're still around. Okay, blah, blah, blah. This issue of advertising running the behavior, the reason these things are valued so highly on the stock market is because of their ability, and let's put Facebook here as well, is because of this issue of advertising. But what does advertising have to do with accurate information about preparing for these issues of climate change? Okay? Now, the reason, let's just say climate change prep is probably the #1 language issue. Okay? Either preparing or not preparing for what's happening with all of this water and frozen water and the rest of the water, etc. Preparing for that or not preparing for that, based on a paradigm of this running through this. That's us. That's our human behavior. And what I guess I'm setting things up for, this is still rough. We're only at video number 24 out of 100 getting set up to go kind of videos. The issue here is we're back to scheduling, okay? And this issue of scheduling in language is remarkably important because basically it's what we're going to say next and what we're going to do next week, this week. We don't organize behavior together unless we schedule it. And so this issue of an agenda that's already in place by those people who are using scheduled advertising versus our behavior on what could be called, we'll just say 5.2, excuse me, billion phones in the world. We'll call them mobile devices, but basically they're phones, okay? As we prepare for this, okay? This is all very real. And this is all, it's only in the United States that we have democracy to the extent that we do. If you look closely at this map of the North Pole, right? Here, realize that this whole area is surrounded by the vestiges of corrupt monarchies. Russia is kind of turned into a kind of a corrupt, bizarre, wannabe monarchy with Putin. We have here the Netherlands and Scandinavia and England and all of that. Those are monarchies. And then Canada has a very close relationship with Britain. Then over here we have the United States, and there's Alaska. Okay, so that's going around here. Vestiges of monarchies, relationships of monarchies, corporations and monarchies. The Hudson Bay Corporation, the Dutch East India Corporation, etc., have more history than the United States. Okay, if you take 500 years, 250, the United States is half or less of the history of monarchies and corporations in the Northern Hemisphere, and with colonialism and the rest of it. So The old money, the powerful money, the real money, let's just say Exxon combined with Shell, combined with uh, you know, BP, etc., combined with Saudi Arabia, monarchies, basically. Monarchies and corporations. Not that interested in democracy. It's only in the last few years that women and teenagers have had the ability to vote in our little democracy here, which is the United States of America. So America has a language technology problem, money being a major part of it, and then the reality of who believes they own the property and the water and the earth and the rest of it. Okay, so we could say that there's an agenda of monarchies and corporations. And I hope that this is showing up in the video. That is older than any agenda of democracy. These people are much more used to having power and money than the average citizen in the United States. And well, the short version of this is that basically we need to schedule a difference between the agenda that's in place for where we're going with this, especially through here. And you say, well, David, that's very nice, but so what? Anyway, this issue of scheduling here, again, is where the money is. So this is not about anything but actually making a living, right? Really making a living. Making a living in the sense of having a life worth living in a relationship to a planet, which is where we live, using what amounts to the reality of language as a technology. Um, what I find interesting in my mandala, right, which we're back to Dave's mandala, is that even though this stuff is basically pretty easy to understand, I still have a problem plugging others into this on a level of let's get going. And this is why I'm saying coherent community and decent tech help are incredibly important when we're talking about this fact that language is a technology. So this schedule of difference situation, where manufacturing is headed, where communications are headed, et cetera, and all the rest of it. We could start with a conversation about 3D printing and hemp. I mean, hemp should be a great ingredient in 3D printing. And, 3D printing and what's it now? How does that fit in right here? Basically, did I leave it out? There's nothing about here in QR codes, but okay, phone app. That's the QR code. That's supposed to be a QR code right there. Anyway, the QR codes with the 3D printing, with the right products, etc. So that was a little bit vague. Anyhow, but let's get back to this language is technology. And I think that would be good enough for now. And this is getting back on track with the 101st videos. Because around about the time of I really do believe that chasing after 1% of this, right? Just 1% of 5.2 billion phones. That was 52 million phones. If 52 million people could trend something, either once a year or on a regular basis, that was of genuine importance with regard to what we're looking at here, that would be absolutely fantastic. So, good enough for now. There we go. Language is a technology. Far out. Okay, let's see what we got. Thanks.